and went, "Hey Google, is Santa real?" Do you remember?
Yeah.
And we were like, and then obviously like it
That
came
was
back.
when technology could do one.
This topic makes me nervous.
We don't have screens, phones, TVs in their bedrooms.
If they're going to flop on the couch and watch some TV,
Yeah.
is that the end of the world?
Go to the next video or turn it off or put a movie on because this isn't good for you.
How can we addict people as quickly as possible?
Their careers, whatever they do, is going to involve a screen. Yeah.
And the whole point of the platform
Privacy.
was for like nudie pics.
Yeah.
And now our kids are on it. Hi guys, I'm Emily.
Hi, and I'm Matt.
And welcome back to our podcast, What They Don't Tell You.
But we will.
Yes, the podcast where we share the lessons that we've learnt and are still learning in parenting. And we try to humor it, don't we?
We have to.
Yeah, and today we are delving into the topic of kids, technology, and screen time.
Juicy.
A topic that we are no experts on, but we have a bit of experience.
We're experts on the screens.
We're experts on screens. And we've got some experience with our children who are currently 8 years old, 11 years old, and 14 years old. And I feel like technology has changed a lot over the course of their lives, hasn't it?
Yeah,
and
so they're 6
ours.
years apart, but even from the first to the last, it's so different, isn't it?
Yeah.
So God knows what's going to be in another 6 years' time.
Yeah. And we're not experts, but then I do think that we make it our business to look at privacy settings, how long they're on it, and things like that. So we thought we would just share. I feel like I haven't talked loads about this on YouTube because it can be a tricky subject.
Yeah,
because
and like
everyone's
so-
so different.
Yeah,
But,
and we are still learning, so you've held back, I'd say, because we only know our kids, don't we? And like you hear
Yeah.
some absolute horror stories, and we haven't had those. But we feel like maybe we've made some steps along the way that have avoided those. But again, like we're not perfect parents. We just we feel like we've got quite a bit right when it's come to screens. But who knows what the future holds as well? So we'll deal with that when it comes.
yeah, there's definitely like pros and cons.
Yeah, and we'll try and look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to break it down into two subjects. So screens and sanity, so parenting for us, especially in a digital age, and them growing up as children in a digital age, and then raising kids in a screen-obsessed world. And not just kids, raising partners in a screen-obsessed world, and grandparents.
No, well, everything. I think it's fair to say like everyone is addicted to screens. Like if you look at your screen time use, you will be horrified, whoever you are.
Yeah.
Like especially if you look at your kids' use after the half term, after lockdown, after the summer holidays. Like it's horrible to think, oh my God, you've been on there for so many hours.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like obviously we've got devices, like I've literally got a device in my hand right now.
Yeah, we couldn't do this without a
I'm
screen.
reading
And
the
we've
note.
got 3 screens and we're watching on a big screen.
Yeah, there's screens everywhere.
Yeah.
But then when I do think back to my own childhood, there were screens there as well. They just weren't interactive.
Yeah.
So I vividly remember my mum setting up the VHS, like showing my age here, VHS,
Wheeled it out.
yeah, movie thing. And she would put it in the VCR hanging out so that me and my sister at 5 years old and 3 years old will wake up, saves her an hour. She'd get an hour more in bed. We would just walk downstairs, press the VHS into the VCR, and it would automatically play. So she'd put a Disney film and we would like watch Beauty and the Beast so she could get a bit more sleep. So there is still the same thing. It's just you're handing them an iPad, which could potentially then share other content with them. So if your child's on YouTube,
Didn't have internet.
they might get served something that you don't want them to be served.
Yeah.
So that is something that is really worrying, but, it's hard to imagine parenting without screens. And if you have ever handed a screen to a child or a baby or just for like 10 minutes peace while you're having coffee with a friend,
Yeah.
like we've all done it.
Yeah, cool.
And I get it. It's just, trying to put some strong boundaries in place and know the risks of that as well.
So yeah, obviously this is a huge topic and one that there isn't a clarity on what's right and what's wrong. Often the argument is like the kids didn't have the childhood that maybe we did that was tablet free, screen free, but they have such better technology at their disposal that they're not going to waste time going to the library for 2 hours to not find the answers that they needed. They can now just ask a device verbally, hey Google, or whatever your device is, Alexa, to tell me this, and then they get the answer, and then they can actually get on with what they need to do. Okay, there's an argument that they learn from going to the library and looking for a book and whatever, and the skills that comes with that. But I think the positives far outweigh the negatives for their careers, etc.
Yeah, I think it will be a bit of a superpower, like going forward. But then what about when Jackson at Christmas just went up to Google, he's 8 years old, and went, hey Google, is Santa real? Do you remember?
Yeah.
And we were like, and then obviously like it
That
came
was
back.
when technology could do one.
No, but it came back with a really good answer, actually.
Yeah.
Like they'd obviously thought of, this.
It's real, right?
But I was like, wow, like, he's just going to ask everything. And
Well, that was thinking on his feet as well, because like you wouldn't get.
yeah.
Maybe you do get a lot
How
of kids.
babies are made. Like
I've googled that quite a lot. I'm still none the
don't know.
wiser.
Something works out.
Yeah.
But
Thanks.
yeah, no, it is amazing. And to be honest, we do have to embrace screens, because I do speak to some parents that are like, oh, I just don't get it. I just don't know. But it's like, we are going to have to embrace it, because this is part of our lives. Like, it's going nowhere, and they're going to use it in the workplace, and they're using it at school.
Yeah. It's like those parents though were the first ones to have a baby, we've discussed before, but also I'm not going to let my kids have screens talk.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't think we ever said that. I think
we did it. I feel like with Fraser, though, we were just at the very beginning of it.
Yeah, with 2010 was when we had him. So like the iPads were a thing, but generally it was still TV shows for kids, wasn't it? You still wait until
you could watch.
I mean, you had a kids dedicated channel on the TV, so you'd put stuff on there. But other than that, anything that was on TV on normal time, you'd wait till school was over, and
I
you
used
put
to
stuff.
love it, because he would watch In the Night Garden.
Yeah,
and
before
that's
bed.
it at 7:00. That was it. It was like, it was done. The
Yeah.
kids stuff was like done, and
Yeah.
you gotta go to bed.
Yeah, but so we never really sort of said with those parents like, we're not going to let them have screens. Whereas as our friends' families had kids later on than us, they're like, I'm not going to let them have
Oh
screens.
yeah, my sister said that, didn't she?
Let's see how it goes. Like you bite your lip, you don't say anything. You go, all right, yeah, good on you.
Yeah, my sister, because we had children before my sister.
Yeah.
Her kids are the same age as our middle, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely not going to let them have a screen." And I couldn't help but laugh out loud.
How's that going?
Yeah, exactly. Because you get on a plane, you desperately need some help, some entertainment. An awkward dynamic that I also face is I am a content creator.
What?
So yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I make content and I consume content, but often I'll justify it in my head as well, because it is for work.
Yeah.
I will save trends and reels that I could then potentially do, and I'll just look at what other people are talking about and just generally consume content.
So that's quite unique, isn't it? So like
It is quite unique. But then I do think a lot of small businesses make content.
Yeah.
Like, you do kind of need to be aware, if you are in business, like maybe what's going on or what else is out there, competitors and things like that. So I consume a lot of content. Now the kids are at school, it's a little bit easier, because I can try and do research and be on my phone during school hours. But when they were younger, if I was looking at my phone, and I think a lot of parents, like if it's your day off, you might look at your emails.
Yep.
You'll probably
might.
check in at the office, like what is going on.
Yep.
But then you're on a device and you're checking things. So it's that balance of, I'm allowed to be on my device, but you're maybe not, or I don't want you to be on it as much. But then you want them to embrace technology, but then not be a zombie. And there's a really fine line with that as well.
I actually feel like my mental health suffers with it all. It's something, there's a dad or as a parent, that gets me, is to walk in a room and to see yourself. Obviously you're probably usually working, but the kids are on screens as well. You're using it as a chance to get some stuff done, because kids do just end up gravitating towards a screen, don't they? If there's nothing to do, it's weird, because when they've got a friend around, they couldn't care less about their screens. Like, they're happy to find the toys they never played with. But for me, it just really makes my blood boil if I walk in a room and everyone is on a screen. It's bizarre, because the eldest is probably doing his homework. Like, he doesn't use this. Do you know what I mean? If he's on an iPad, especially, it's because he's doing schoolwork. Jackson's probably doing some sort of drawing tutorial or something, and Kayla's probably watching some video about football. But I don't know why. Personally, just for me, it just really gets to me. And like, it's probably it actually is where I'm showing my generation that I didn't have it. And that I feel like I want my kids to not need a screen, when I probably do need to let my guard down. and focus on the content that they're consuming as opposed to how long they're actually spending. I'd almost rather they spent, I don't know, say they have an hour a day. I'd almost rather it be an hour and a half or 2 hours a day on good content than an hour of brain rot of just absolute garbage of this guys where the people are just screaming and like, stuff that you have a real problem with.
I'm the same. Like, if they're watching a film on TV or even a TV series, it doesn't bother me as much as if they're scrolling through YouTube, who I love YouTube. But if they're scrolling through YouTube or they're gaming, that really gets to me. If they're watching a show, it doesn't really bother me as much.
It's not screen time.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're enjoying a film.
It's because it's not like that as well. Do you know what I mean? You feel that.
I think it is the attention span and the quick scrolling that gets to me. And it's interesting if you watch the kids on a device and they go to YouTube, like as an adult, I would watch more long form content, I think, maybe sometimes. But they don't. I watch them because I'm interested. They go straight to YouTube Shorts and they just scroll, which is a bit like TikTok. And the 2-second attention span, that really gets to me. And also, anyone can make a YouTube video, which I do, and it can be crap. So there are some great things that we actually love them to watch. Like there's some really good interactive things on YouTube that I discovered in lockdown when we were desperate for things to do. And there's channels like Draw So Cute, which are drawing tutorials. There's also one that's called Art for Kids, so you're drawing along with someone who's teaching you how to draw. And it's great because the boys are super creative, they love it, and I love.
And they're still in the room, right?
Yeah, they're still in the room and they're doing something tangible. So, they got paper and a pen and they're learning how to draw. So those ones I don't really mind. And there's also people like Mark Rober, who is this ex-NASA engineer. And he does great videos for kids, teaching them all about physics and science. And he did this amazing video about how carnival games work and how it's all a scam. And like you basically can't win because of the physics. So now when they go to it,
they actually say it to us, don't they?
They're like, oh no, we can't win this one. And like those sort of educational channels are amazing. And I think if you can find ones like that, like we don't mind the boys consuming football content, do we?
Nice.
Because they'll often be watching videos about football skills and then they'll go in the garden and try them out. So they're like, oh, I'm going to do the crossbar challenge
put
now.
it into practice,
and so all of that, I think actually that's really nice and they're learning a lot, but it's the ones... Oh, we actually quite like Dhar Mann as well. Because they tell really nice stories.
It's got a moral.
So I would probably recommend channels like that, and whatever your child's into, like be it gymnastics, dance, whatever, there's a yoga for kids. Brilliant.
It's when they start watching that stuff where they're just being screamed at. And you lose your kid.
And they're really strange, some of those. Like on one side of the screen, it will be some really, really weird screaming story. And then on the other side of the screen, it's like Skittles. Or like food. And they've obviously worked out what makes them look for longer. They're listening to the story, but they're watching the food and...
Well, they come away from it and go, can we do that? I was like, no.
Some things you're like, oh, like I made that dalgona because they'd seen someone make that. And I was like, okay, let's put this into practice now. But it is hard because, one thing that we do, especially with those short form videos, is we don't let the kids watch them on a phone or a device. We allow them to scroll through stuff like that on the TV.
I think a question you get asked a lot is, what age should your child have a phone? Which isn't a one age answer, is it? I think as a parent, guardian, like you need to decide when you think your child's ready or if they need one. I mean, for us, it was just a cut-off really of secondary school, wasn't it, for our eldest?
Well, I think we actually had almost like an induction meeting at the senior school he was going to go to. And they just said like, they will need a phone if a club is cancelled. We don't contact you. They will contact you. And we were a bit like, oh, because it was our first. We were like, oh, okay, he's going to need a phone then. And it was a bit of a shock. He was like 11 or 12 years old.
But he was ready for it. But also it is the start of something, isn't it? Because they have the internet, because they've obviously got a connection so they can get online. And I think for us, that's when it begins, when you really think, okay, right, we are not always going to be in control of what he's consuming, and we can have these rules in place. Our middle child is 11 years old, so he actually goes off to secondary school this September, and he doesn't have a phone.
No, apparently he's the only one in his whole class.
Yes,
That's what I think that's rubbish. I think he just tells us that.
Yeah. I know there are a good few kids that have them, and some children are ready. And to be honest, our eldest, we gave him one towards the end of this school year in preparation for going to secondary school, which is probably what we'll do with our middle boy. Because we actually tried probably 3-4 months ago, because we have a device ready for him, and we had it for about a month, and we just felt like he wasn't ready, was he? And he was using it for the wrong reasons. And we as parents made that decision to not let him have a device and said, look, you're going to have one when you go to secondary school, but you're just not quite ready. And he was actually okay about it. We just felt like we lost him quite quickly, didn't we? And we could see how he wasn't the right age to have one, which is the worrying thing, is that obviously he's going to need one for communication at secondary school. And whether we decide actually you have a watch or you have a brick phone that you can only call and text on, which his oldest brother's already told us, like, you can't do that, you can't do that. It's like, we'll cross that bridge when it comes. But it's just big decisions to make. But you, as parents, you've just got to make those calls yourself, and you hopefully are in a relationship with your child that they do listen to you and say, look, like you say to them, sorry, you're not ready for it just yet. But it's awkward because it's almost like you need all the parents at the school to agree, like, right, we all give them to them this week.
I think there are really awkward situations with that, because obviously different kids are ready at different times and different parents think different things.
Yeah, it's an opinion, isn't it?
We've definitely had like sleepovers in the past where, you know, a mum will say, like, sorry, is it all right if we have no devices at this sleepover?
Yeah.
And then maybe another mum doesn't think that should be the case. And it's like,
not just devices.
It's an awkward situation because I would actually like them to not have a device. I'd prefer that.
Yeah.
But then the girls, you know, especially girls, they want to make TikTok videos and they want to like dance and like film it and stuff. Like I would have loved it as a kid.
Yeah. I think,
but it's not even that side of it. It's the, you know, potential people that could contact them, the potential content they can consume that you really don't want them to consume. And a lot of that is on social media.
Yeah.
So that, if they've got a phone but they don't have social media, like, it's a completely different story.
Yeah. It's
when they're on things like Snapchat.
Going back
TikTok.
to the sleepovers, it's not to do with screen as well. I just, like, obviously it's the whole rules thing, isn't it? Every kid, it's always interesting when you have kids around to sleep because you see different sides of these children. Obviously their parents aren't there, but I never forget one of our kids had a sleepover and they weren't in bed late, but it must have been about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and they were all starting to go to sleep. And then one of the kids just come out of the room and he says, Matt, I was like, yes. He went, can I have a Coke?
Well,
it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I just looked at him, I was like, I laughed and I was like, I can get you a glass of water. I was like, you allowed Coke at home at this time of night? And he looked at me as if to say, like, well, no, I'm not, but like, I'm just trying it because I'm at a sleepover and we've had a load of sweets, like I'm on one and I just want to avoid going to sleep, basically.
Yeah.
I did tell his parents and they really laughed and it was like, obviously, no, we wouldn't
allow that.
But it's just the way you come out of it. Can I have a Coke? The second topic is raising kids in a screen-obsessed world. I believe you've done a little bit of studying, Emily.
Yes, I have, because I was doing a little bit of research because this topic makes me nervous because I feel like no one really knows.
No.
You know, there's doctors that will recommend only 1 to 2 hours a day of screen time for children over the age of 2. But they don't really say what kind of screens. And then there's also like huge social media platforms that are massive businesses saying, actually, you know, screen time's fine. We protect your kids in these ways, which is also a little bit questionable. So I was like, what are the doctors saying? Like, how is this actually affecting our kids?
I do feel like from what I've read as well, it's like, is this obsession of those over how much time, and I feel like it's actually the content that they're consuming is the most important thing. Like I said earlier, rather than consuming more of good content than less of really bad, but harmful content.
Exactly. If they're having an hour of FaceTime with a friend, you're not going to worry about that. But it's like, what are they seeing? The quality of the content.
Yeah.
But if there are children that have a huge amount of screen time, the number one impact is on their brain development. So children that have, extended time on screens, it actually changes their brain development. And another huge one is sleep disruption.
Yeah.
So, especially if children have screens around bedtime, the blue light that is emitted can actually interfere with the melatonin that is produced.
Wow.
So, obviously we need melatonin to come up for us to then fall asleep. So if your child is really struggling at bedtime and they have a screen right up until bedtime, which some kids do,
Yeah.
like we went through a phase of watching some stories on YouTube,
Yeah.
but actually maybe the hour before bed, you avoid screens, like screens with blue light.
Yeah, we do that, don't we? We sort of say like after
Yeah.
the bath, we're like, no screens because
Yeah,
you need
no,
to just
but then
wind
we'll
down.
maybe watch TV and wind down.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is a screen? But
We
yeah,
do that as well.
an iPad in your face. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually got those blue light blocking glasses now. But I mean, I don't think you want to buy them for a child. I think just to
No,
stop.
and that is also avoiding
Yeah.
because he's still consuming content. Like, okay,
Exactly.
it's not bright light.
So it's like different for an adult because I feel like I still want to do some work in the evenings.
Yeah.
But
Do you want to?
well, yeah, I do. I like it.
Thanks.
But then also another huge thing is the physical health concerns around it, because sedentary lifestyle is really dangerous for everyone, and especially for children. They need to be out, they need to be running around, they need to be doing things, and child obesity and cardiovascular problems, is on the rise in children.
Yeah.
So one thing that I was thinking is, obviously our kids, they do a lot of clubs, they do a lot of football and, things like that.
Yeah.
But maybe screen time can be this reward for physical activity.
It is kind of how you justify it all the time, though, isn't it? It's like, oh, they've been doing this all day. Like, oh, he can have an hour.
Yeah, and I do sometimes think, like, when the kids come home at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock, like they are wiped, they're exhausted. So, like, I think if they're gonna flop on the couch and watch some TV, is that the end of the world? Like, I did that as a kid.
Again, I think it's just purely what they're going to consume as opposed to how long they're doing it for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But maybe you're like, you have to earn your screen time. Like you have to go on a dog walk or, do your football club but then again, it's that making it a reward. So that, questionable. But then also another thing is the mental health implications. Like higher screen time is correlated with more mental health issues, and quite a lot of children that like there's been a few studies, and the more screen time basically was equally like the more anxiety,
you can believe it,
more depression, especially among teenagers.
Yeah.
So that is one area that I think, us as kids, if we had bullying or problems at school, when you came home, that was it.
That was it.
Switched off. They're not following you home. They're not whatever. But actually now, in a time when there is social media, and maybe even gets worse. So you get home and then people are messaging you or sending you horrible videos.
Well, it's easy to write a message, isn't it, right? As opposed to actually saying something to someone's face.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I know firsthand, like being on social media, how cruel people can be.
It's mostly me.
It's mostly you trolling me. But, people, they do hide behind a keyboard. And obviously, as an adult, I know I can justify it.
Yeah,
I
but
know not to bite back. And I know, it's a them issue and not a me issue. But I'm an adult.
Yeah, you can deal with it. But as a child,
and actually, some comments, they, especially when you get your first one, it does make your heart go. You have physical symptoms.
Yeah.
And sometimes I actually see things on Instagram that upset me for the day.
The actual content.
Yeah. Like I love like dog content, don't I? But often I'll get like a lot of like rescue stories and they're really sad.
Yeah.
Or there's like a child crying and it sticks with me. So that's happening to me as an adult. So
imagine what this content can do to them.
To children as well. But from the research that I was looking at, the main themes were to have balance and moderation. So that it's fine to have it, but that it should be intentional use, and that there's like a health balance between, physical play, a family time, and sleep, and a little bit of screen time. So it's kind of like having that balance, and also parent involvement. So like we said, being within earshot of it, maybe having it on the TV. So if a swear word comes up or something that you
Yeah.
don't want the kids to be seeing, because, YouTube Kids and other platforms may have goodwill, but things still slip through, don't they? So
Yeah.
having parent involvement, maybe you sit next to them when maybe you have screen time, when they have screen time,
Well,
but
yeah,
you're
so
there.
our balance and moderation, so I can discuss our rules.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, we've not always got it right, but we seem to now be, obviously they're a bit older as well, and we've sort of reasoned and we've worked out a good way of doing it. We don't have screens, phones, TVs in their bedrooms. And for us, it works, and it's been fundamental, I think. So they can only have phones and iPads downstairs, and they can only consume social media on TV. So the YouTubes, the TikToks, we only let them watch it. I mean, we're lucky we've got 2 TVs down here. We only let them watch that content through there. So then we're within earshot. There's always an adult in this room pretty much, isn't there? There's always one of us here, hence the children are at home. And we can hear what they're listening to. And whereas as opposed to if they was upstairs, do you know what I mean? They can be consume whatever they like.
And click off to other
and we know people
things.
that do let their kids game in their rooms, etc. And
I think our kids would be so happy if we were like, we're going to get you a
they'd love it.
TV.
Yeah.
But I think as well, like you and me didn't have TVs upstairs when we were kids.
No.
So it's something that we've never had.
Yeah.
So we're just going to do that with our kids.
Yeah.
And we have a projector.
Yeah.
So
for
we
movies.
do have sometimes like family movie nights upstairs on the projector, and that's all like really exciting.
Yeah.
But in terms of content,
it's only consumed down here.
upstairs.
So we'll be cooking, we can see the TV or we can hear the TV in their playroom. So at the moment, it seems to work for us, doesn't it? And I think it's a method that if anyone wanted some advice, I think that would be one good way of doing it. Because once you start hearing the brain rot, like for me, it angers me. And I know they're not getting any benefit from that kind of content. So I'm happy to be like, you need to go to the next video or turn it off or put a movie on because this isn't good for you.
Yeah. And there was that documentary that Matt and Emma Willis did. I can't actually remember the name of it right now. But they said one thing you can start today is not charging their devices in their room, because often seeing the content that they shouldn't really see happens at night.
Yeah.
So, in the middle of the night, they might be tempted to like look at their phone, and then they'll click onto things that you really don't want them to see. So that as a general rule is probably like, it's a one that you can like action now.
We tend to not charge their devices for them either, don't we? Because like Jackson will say, oh, you haven't charged my iPad. It's like,
oh, whoops.
It's your responsibility and it means you're not getting to use it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, you're going to put it on charge.
Yeah.
And then they do forget about it. They think, oh. He often doesn't even go and put it on charge. He just goes, oh, well, I'm just going to leave it. He doesn't put it on charge. That's fine. You're not going to have it for the rest of the day. That's good.
Yeah. And we do have gaming, like in their playroom, they have the ability to game.
Yeah.
But I mean, we touched on this in another podcast, but we don't let them have super addictive games like Fortnite.
Yeah.
And that is just because personally, like I know some other children will be fine with it.
Yeah.
And it works for them.
Yeah.
But for us, it was causing loads of arguments. Our kids were getting super emotional, and I thought it was quite violent.
Yeah, it brought out the worst in them.
Yeah, it just wasn't.
They weren't ready, and they weren't the age that they were meant to be to play it. And you sort of always see that as a guideline. But we actually waited, didn't we, with our eldest till he was 13, which was the age on Fortnite. And by the time it got to that, he hadn't really asked for it. Here and there he'd said about it, but by the time he got to 13, he was like, you can have it now. I think it was his 13th birthday. His friends came around from school and they were like, yeah, let's play Fortnite because you're allowed now, Fraser. And I mean, he played it, don't get me wrong, but he was like,
he's not bothered.
He didn't want to play it when they left.
No.
But by doing that, his younger brothers were there and they'd never really seen it, and they obviously saw it, and they were the ones who were like, oh, this is good. Because of that age, it does become an addictive game.
Yeah, they seemed like super addictive so quickly. And it was like, that's why the age is on it.
Yeah.
You're not ready. And he is.
And you've got to make that call as a parent. But all their friends, the younger ones, were playing it. So then they thought this was the coolest thing ever. They can go to school and talk about it. And we probably let them have it for a month, maybe 2, was it? And it just brought out the worst in them.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? A really easy thing would have been to say, okay, because the main thing for me was they were fighting over it.
Yeah.
So much they were fighting, and even if they played it together, they were fighting.
And then they said, "Oh, can we have it each?
Yeah,
can we have
one
another
on
console?"
one TV and one on the other TV? And it's like, well, no, you need to deal with each other. You
Yeah.
need to work out how
Yes.
you're going to work.
So we
this
thought,
out.
oh, this might be a way of them getting on and like
Yeah.
solving the problem, but it just didn't. It brought out the worst in them, didn't it? And
it started out as something that was potentially going to be fun for them, and then I was
Yeah.
like, no one is having fun, and it's
No.
actually ruining our whole day.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
you're
we
arguing.
meant
so
to be doing
much.
us a favour by you having some time on there, giving us time to work, make dinner, whatever. When actually, all it did, they were arguing when they was on it, and then we just brought out the worst in them after as well. So for us, there was only one thing we could do, and we just cut it off. And we said, "We're really sorry, kids." And we got the odd chat of like, "Oh, my friends at school don't."
Well, I even feel bad saying it on this podcast because I know a lot of kids will be loving Fortnite and having a great time on it, and I know other kids that are fine with it.
Yeah.
Like, I just felt like for us, it wasn't working. And then I did start to look at Fortnite in general, and apparently is the number one most addictive game out there, followed by, there was one that I didn't even know. It was like World of War or something. And then it was League of Legends. And then it was Candy
I'm not
Crush.
a gamer. I'm not a gamer,
No.
which
Well,
probably
no.
helps.
Yeah, that's true. If you were gaming with them, it might actually be different, but you're not really a gamer yourself.
No. Going back to Candy Crush.
Yeah, I was going to say. So Candy Crush was number 4.
We've not touched on this as well because obviously we're talking about kids and screen time, and we've touched a little bit on Emily, obviously with work and whatever. And just most people are obsessed with their phones, right? It's a habit now. It's addictive. And you often get a comment from the generation above us, grandparents, "Oh, we didn't have screens in our day," which, like, I mean, my mum has the kids quite a lot. She's actually great, but she's like guilty of letting them have a screen because she knows it's whatever, it makes her life easier. But their generation, if you think about it, especially if they're retiring or coming to that age, they've got the same addictions, like, but worse because they're not as physical.
Time.
Yeah, but they're not going to clubs. Do you know what I mean? If they're sat around and then suddenly and they're of a generation that actually can use an iPad, a phone, they get the odd thing they can't do, but generally they can do just as much as us on it. And they've got addictions. And the kids, we always tell this story and they just think it's hilarious. My dad was over and on his iPad and looked like he was doing something really serious.
Really important.
Like, making out like he's got this really important agenda. And he was playing Candy Crush. And,
he loves it.
and the kids were an age that they thought it was funny and cool. They're like, "Oh my God, granddad."
Yeah.
And then Fraser started looking at his Candy Crush and he was like, "You're really good at this. Like, what level are you on?" Said what level he's on. Turns out, at the time, my dad was number 7 in the world on the ranking of Candy Crush. Now, I didn't know much about the game at the time, but once we started looking into it, that was like some serious gaming that he was doing to get to that stage. And I looked up how many hours he needed to be playing, and he was playing it for hours on hours a day.
Well, he's retired though, so he's got the time, you know, he's like hanging out, and he's number 7 in Candy Crush in the world.
Yeah,
and it is the 4th most addictive game out there. So
so I think our kids, I mean, when you look at it like that.
They love to tell everyone, they're like, my granddog. They call him Granddog.
From Peppa Pig.
Because once when Fraser was
it's hilarious to tell the story. Like, he was number 7 in the world at Candy Crush. But actually, it does highlight that their generation is just as addicted to...
Actually, that reminds me, I never forget once we were on holiday and we went out for dinner. We had like 3 young kids, so we let them have the iPads. You know what it's like on holiday. We let them have the iPads and we could feel this table next to us. It was these older, an older couple or something, wasn't
it? Was it their kid? Or
and they were just like shaking their head, and you could tell that
we had Jackson on an iPad, I think.
Yeah, we were in Spain and they were just like, you could just tell they were visibly didn't agree with the screens.
They were disgusted.
While they were smoking and drinking.
In front of their kids,
And I just felt like, okay, well, hold on, like, we're not smoking, we're not drinking.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we're affecting our kids' mental health. They're affecting their kids' physical health. Yeah, it's like...
It was like, we're all just trying to survive here.
Yeah, he was young.
And you
Jackson.
never know someone's situation.
No, he was jet lagged from the 1 hour time difference.
Yeah, exactly. But it was just funny that, like,
I think I nearly said something though, didn't I? I sort of looked.
You did. You were like pretty pissed off about it.
Yeah, because of the way they just couldn't stop looking at us. I was like, look,
they were chain smoking the whole time.
Yeah.
And I was like, sorry, like, you're not perfect.
Yeah,
We're not perfect.
Yeah, I mean, and I can't stand smoking, but I wasn't looking at them like I probably
Shaking your
was in my head
head.
thinking it is disgusting you're smoking at a table, but it's different culture as well. But even still, with children at the table, but I wouldn't sit there and I'd either say something, say sorry, can you stop smoking near my children? Do you want to go outside? I mean, it was an outdoor restaurant, but I wouldn't just sit there and stare.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway.
But yeah, so
sorry,
their
that's
generation
fine.
anyway, I feel like there's problems there as well when it comes to screens. It does make me laugh when you get a comment from somebody old generation because your kid's on a screen or something. It's like he's actually doing his homework, or do you know what I mean? He's reading a magazine.
Yeah.
Because there's those age-old clips of people on a tube, 30 like a train 30 years ago, all reading newspapers. Whereas now, and then they cut to now, and everyone's on their phone. Like
But it's a newspaper on the phone.
Like it's a bad thing. It's like no, they were consuming content. They're consuming content.
Oh, I know. I've seen some really funny reels, and it's like me, judging my children for being on screens, and it's like me at their age, and they're literally like two people on a bike smoking, like doing all these like other things that are actually really dangerous. So yeah, it's just changed. It's just times have changed.
Yeah.
But one thing that does annoy me a bit, but I guess every sort of business or corporate world or thing when money's involved, so say gaming, it's a massive industry, and games like Fortnite, like they employ psychologists, behavioral experts, neuroscientists
to get you
all of, literally, how can we addict people as quickly as possible? How can we get them to feel that dopamine hit? Same with social media, it's exactly the same, but it's almost like they're getting doctors and things and they're using it for evil. They know everything about our brain.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is how it's all for money. And with Fortnite, that was another thing. The skins thing. It's like, sorry, I'm not giving you money for literally nothing.
You see those reels, don't you? Like, I've worked all day. It's okay because I've managed to pay 30 quid for my kid to have a skin on.
For a new skin,
Luckily, we don't have that as the one. Well, there's loads of good things about not being on Fortnite, but we don't have to deal with that. But then there's games we do let them have, and like, do you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. It's like you pick your battles.
And then again, like there are games like. Once I saw Fraser on his phone and I was about to just say to him, but he was on Duolingo. He's got this like 1 year streak on Duolingo and he's learning Spanish. And I'm like, well, that, if it's intentional and it's educational, you don't mind.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fine line, isn't it? And it's about balance.
One thing I would say that all parents can do is to really swat up on parental settings. So say if your child loves Roblox, I feel like they don't really play it anymore, but in lockdown I used to play it with them to like, it was like something to, we do like fashion famous or whatever it was called. And I loved it. And I was like, this is great. But you can easily go onto Roblox because, I mean, Roblox can be dangerous. If they can talk to strangers and people can try and groom them. I've seen some horror stories out there with like them giving out their address and people turning up at their door and it's awful. But it's not hard to change the privacy settings. If you literally Google like, how can I put parental controls on my child's Roblox thing? You can go on and you can say like, they can't speak to this person, but then you can speak to their friend.
Yeah.
So you can get super specific with the controls that you can put on there.
Yeah. And we just need to embrace it, don't we, with the screens with the kids, because it's all well and good stopping them having certain things, but like they need screen time of some sort because let's be honest, their careers, whatever they do, is going to involve a screen, whether it's a trade, do you know what I mean, of some, and social media as well. Do you know what I mean, there's going to be so many careers based around those industries.
Yeah.
So it is as parents about balancing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We've obviously got a teenager, and the phone is a thing, obviously an issue, not an issue, but it's also something we have to deal with. He
it's
likes
just like a worry.
It's a worry, exactly. And there's a lot of talk at the moment I've seen about banning phones in schools. I think some schools have trialled it. It's a bit of a weird subject, I think. I don't know, is it just to get in the headlines of the fact that these kids are addicted? But like, I mean, our eldest, they're not allowed phones at school. So they're not banned. They're just not allowed on their phone.
Yeah,
it's
like
only a communication
phone.
tool. Yeah. They almost could just have a brick.
But they can walk out and turn it on.
Yeah, so
That's
I should imagine the kids go in the toilets and what have you. We're lucky he just seems to play football at lunch and, do you know what I mean, eat with his friends. I mean, he almost has a detox from his phone for 8 or 9 hours a day from doing it. And then if he wants to communicate with us, it's via email. He's got his email.
Every now and then he'll email. I forgot my
which is
this.
the real world as well, isn't it? If you was in an office,
Yeah.
I mean, you generally don't have a phone. You'd probably just email people. We used to email each other
Yeah.
from our workplace. It's a way
Yeah.
of getting in touch. But then you were saying earlier, also kids, you shouldn't really be.
Yeah, you're almost contacting them too much. I saw something which actually really stuck with me because in our day, if our parents wanted to contact us during the school day, someone would have to phone the office. The person in the office would have to walk to the
Put it
class
over
you're
the tannoy.
in. Yeah, put it over the tannoy, walk to your classroom, get you out of class to say to you, your mom's going to pick you up early or
Yeah.
whatever. You got a dentist, whatever.
Yeah.
It would be a whole thing. So they were saying before you text your child who is at senior school,
Yeah.
you should think of it like that.
Yeah.
So rather than just texting, do you want mac and cheese for dinner?
Yeah.
You should think about,
Call the school.
that's it. Would I call the office, have the lady walk to his class to pull him out
If
of
you
class
don't like the
to
secretary.
say, would you like mac and cheese for dinner? It actually makes it then ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's really made me think, before I ever contact him
It's independence,
at school,
right?
well, I just don't contact him when he's at school.
Yeah.
Because nothing is that important
No.
to pull him out of class. So I think that's quite a nice way of thinking of it.
He doesn't like mac and cheese, so like you wouldn't bother.
No, but every now and then he'll email and say, "Oh, I forgot my art homework."
Yeah.
Or
But even with that, there comes a point like where they've
No, you're
asked
like,
so many
sorry.
times, like, no, you've got. There's only way. I'm really sorry, but you've got to learn from this. Like, no, even if one of us is
But
around.
I think as well, because I'm at home, because I'm
Yeah,
working
and
at
he
home,
knows that.
he knows
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you could just bring it in.
Yeah.
But
Picking battles, I guess, isn't it? It's like, oh, do they need to actually now learn that they've forgotten it 2 or 3 times? He's pretty good, but
no, but it is. You think, oh well, if I don't bring it in, then you're not going to do that
get
again.
the detention and then serve
But
the
it's
time.
horrible. Yeah, it's not nice. I think there's so much more when it comes to teenagers, especially. And I don't want to be like super down on this podcast, but I do follow an account on Instagram. I actually love following her. It's called Scrolling to Death. So
Sounds like fun.
it's a really happy, sunny page. But she does highlight a lot of the issues and a lot of the horrible stories. Like I spoke to Fraser the other day, he's our eldest. I talked to him about this scam that's going on, with young boys. And I'm sure some of you guys may have heard of it as well. But it's where these IP addresses are contacting young boys that are like 14, 15, and they are pretending to be young girls, these beautiful young girls. They make them fall in love with them, and then they send like a bit of a nudie pic. And then the girl is like, I'm saying girl because it's not really a girl.
Yeah.
It's a man. And they're saying, okay, now you send me a naked photo. So obviously these young hormonal boys full of testosterone are like thinking they're in love, sending a picture because this girl has asked for it.
Yeah.
And then instantly the guy is turning around and saying, not really. And if you don't send me £5,000 or however much money it is, I am going to share this photo with everyone on your contacts list. I'm going to send it to every single one. And boys have been committing suicide. And it is horrendous to think that they're being bribed and they are thinking, actually, the only way out of this is to end everything.
Yeah.
So I spoke to Fraser about it all. One saying, there is nothing you could ever do that would make me stop loving you or make me want you to disappear, or that we couldn't get through, that we couldn't work out. So I think it's really important to have that conversation with them about
especially
that.
boys. I know it's like,
well, no, but it might happen. I'm
talk.
sure there's loads of stories about girls, but I think I hone in on the boy ones because I've got boys.
Yeah.
So I really pay attention to them. But then I was also saying to him, one, not that he would. The funny thing is, like, he jokes about it.
He humours it, doesn't he?
He thinks it's ridiculous, and he's like, "How stupid do you think I am?" But I was like, "You don't know. These are such clever scams." And I said, "One, girls won't be asking you for that."
Well, with AI as well.
Ask you.
With AI, it could be a girl that he knows. Do you know what I mean? That they've, managed to AI photos or whatever. Yeah.
There's so much you can do with AI.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to have those conversations about talking to strangers, and it might seem obvious, but it's not always obvious to young people.
No.
And these are their first time relationships. Like, you can see how easily it happens. You can see how these scams work.
Yeah,
so
that's the worry.
Be very, very careful if your children are on Snapchat.
Yeah.
Because everything disappears.
It's the worst, right?
Yeah. And on this Scrolling to Death that I follow, she's saying 50% of children on Snapchat have experienced bullying harassment. 30% of children have seen images that are intimate that they don't necessarily want to see. And a new thing on there is selling illegal weapons and drugs.
Wow.
So people are now selling drugs on Snapchat because everything disappears.
Yeah,
It's like a great platform to sell drugs on.
Because there's no evidence,
And there's
right?
been some cases in, I think the one that I saw was in America, but I'm sure it's everywhere, of, you contacted people on Snapchat saying, like, do you want a few pills or do you want these drugs? They're literally being delivered to your front garden. So people are dropping them in your front garden. The kids are grabbing them, taking them, and some are dying. Some in America, one was like laced with fentanyl. And I know these are all like the horrible, dark stories, which I fill my head with. But then
it's happening.
It is also good to be aware.
It's awareness, right? With most things.
Because, grooming, all of that is rife on Snapchat. And again, if they are on Snapchat, you can set privacy settings. You can make it so strangers can't contact them.
Yeah.
And, try and like shut it down as much as you can because you don't want to alienate your kids so they're not involved.
It's also how they they communicate with their friends now, right? They don't use WhatsApp. Do you know what I mean? They don't use text. They don't phone them. I mean, they're either on a game, which they sort of grow out of, and then it becomes platforms like Snapchat.
I know. So you don't want them to miss out. But then also, I really worry about Snapchat because it actually used to be called Peekaboo.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the platform was for like nudie pics.
Yeah.
And now our kids are on it.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't suit right. And there's another one that I think every parent should be aware of. It's brand new, but apparently kids are on it. It's called character.ai.
Yeah.
And so it's all these AI characters and they are simulating relationships. So kids are loving them. They are super addictive.
Yeah.
They remember, so the AI remembers everything about you and they give you all this dopamine and like reward center because they like agree with everything you're saying. If you go on there and you moan about your parents, they're like, yeah. Like, so they're like reinforcing everything you want.
Yeah.
But then there's been another case of a boy falling in love with this character.ai character and ending it. Because he's like, he can't be with her, so he'd rather just, and it's very messed up. So, but I would say if you ever find character.ai on your child's device, like delete it.
Yeah.
And don't allow it because it's pretty scary. Sorry.
That's right.
Depressing.
Is this a bit weird if I do my moan?
Yeah, let's do your Matt's
moan. Like, and it's not even in context. Well, luckily it's not. I mean, you just had a moan.
That was, sorry guys, that was a big moan.
So,
but it's like this scary world, and you're like, you're trying to do all the right things, but it's almost changing quicker than we are.
Yeah, and it becomes out of your hands before you know it. And you don't know how your children are going to deal with such apps, games, platforms until they have them, and till it's too late sometimes. But that's why, especially the teenage years are the hardest because you want to give them that independence and you don't want to just say no. Like with our younger two, we can just like fortnight, no, you can't have it. Like they're at that age, whereas now it's like you don't want to lose that respect from your child. And then for us, I feel like if we felt like, say with Snapchat, it was affecting him, because it's not, like you can tell it's not affecting him, but we would obviously have to step in. But then you'd lose an element of respect from them if that's how all their friends are communicating and stuff.
Well, I think it gets to an age where you also do have to give them a little bit of trust.
Well, they're going to have independence
but
in
be very
3-4 years
as well.
They're going to have independence in 3 or 4 years' time. So, like,
you don't
want them to
to
get to that age and be like, "You never gave me nothing. I'm gone."
Yeah.
But yeah, to be continued.
God.
Anyway, my moan. I actually struggle to come up with a moan because I try and keep them relatable to the subjects of the podcast, and I did struggle. So this is remotely to do with a phone. My moan. That's about as digital as it gets. And it seems kind of irrelevant now after all that deep chat. And I feel bad for saying it, but what I can't stand is when people eat over the phone. If you're on a phone call and someone starts eating.
No, but I should say you have that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
What's it called? Misophonia?
I have misophonia.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But when someone is on the other end of the phone and they start eating, knowing full well that their mouth is next to a microphone.
It is a bit rude.
It's rude, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my mind.
But you do also hate when people eat anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a lover. I think eating crisps should be banned in public, like on a train or in an office. I was just
eating crisps, minding my own business, and you were looking at me like you were going to kill me.
It just kills me because of the crunching. Even the kids, like, it's weird because I love them unconditionally, but if they start eating crisps like loudly,
you don't love them
even
anymore.
if their mouth's closed, I can still hear it. I'm like, I have to just leave the room. Yeah, so I've obviously got a phobia.
Might be a you problem. No.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've addressed that and I'm getting help about it.
If you eat near me the week before my period, I do want to punch you in the face.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just, that's, you say about men, like how like got it easy, but I'm like, I'm obviously on my period all the time. So exactly. If you know me, just don't eat on. I mean, I'm not a big fan of talking on the phone anyway.
No, you don't.
So if you pull out something to eat, it's just like the going back to the food. I'm like, sorry, like we're not on the phone for long here. Just let's have the conversation. And it's when they can't talk because they're eating. I'm like,
no, but I think you just hate being on the phone as well.
Well, that's a moan another week.
If we had a long distance relationship, we wouldn't be together.
Because that's love right there.
No, but you don't like talking on the phone.
Oh, I'm moving away with my new job.
When he recently went to Spain for 5 days, you phoned me on like one of the 5 days and we're having a conversation.
But I got back and you was like, are you all right? Is everything all right? I'm like, yeah, absolutely fine. Like,
no, because we were having a conversation, probably 20 minutes. And then you went, anyway, gotta go. We've been on the phone for so long.
That is a long time for me to be on the phone, right?
So we went a 20-minute call. Oh, sorry. You're
no,
right.
but I jokingly said this has been way too long. And then you pretty much hung up. I was like,
yeah, because you hate being on the phone, even though I haven't spoken to you for 5 days. Obviously, you're texting. You're fine with that.
Yeah.
But you're just like, oh, like, I gotta go. It's been 20 minutes. Like, I'm sorry.
I was joking. So I got home and I was like, oh, and he's like, oh, I feel like you didn't want to talk to me. I was like, well, it's absolutely fine. I spoke to you for 20 minutes one day.
Lucky me.
Get what you're given. So basically, you said that if we was in a long distance relationship, it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work.
Okay.
What?
G'day, mate.
You're going to get deployed.
Hopefully.
Anyway, guys, I hope that was helpful. I feel like we have been a little bit negative, but then also hopefully giving you a few tips and a few like channels that we like the kids to actually be on. And there's so many great educational apps. I don't want it to be all like doom and gloom because it is an incredible tool.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like we need to be careful and we really need to swat up ourselves. And I think some schools are getting better at that. Like our school actually does like a digital evening of like talking about all of this and like things that you can do. But
I feel sorry for teachers because obviously they just hear the worst, rightly so. So for them, they're just very scared by it, aren't they? Because they obviously get talks and they get told they get told the bad stuff, which they need to know. And then because of it, they're just so scared of social media.
I must admit, if I say, especially to teachers actually,
yeah,
what I do, I'm a YouTuber, they look at me like I've got 3 heads.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you're one of them. Like, I don't know. Like,
I don't blame them because they obviously only hear the bad stuff because they've obviously got to educate their children into online safety.
I actually used to work in a school in another life and we had to have child protection training.
Yeah.
And it is very scary. Like the things that they teach you about, it's, horrendous, not what you want to know about. But yeah, I do get it. But yeah. So the main thing is moderation, balance, intention.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but we would of course love to
change the Wi-Fi password.
We would, of course, love to know your feedback. What do you do when it comes to screen time? Let us know in the comments down below. And we'd also love for you to follow us, subscribe, all that good stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for watching and listening. And we will see you guys next week.
See ya.
Bye.